it's me again.
So I got an interesting question, which I've gotten before because I tend to play jazz and metal and shreddy stuff and kind of switch between the two. Not very successfully, but I do it. So the question was, how do you recommend I make the transition from a rock background into playing jazz? Now, I'm going to make this kind of quick, hopefully. The way I did it was terrible. I was a pretty damn good shred player. You know, I knew my modes and I knew some chords, and when I got into jazz, I pretty much started over. I sold all my gear, I bought a jazz guitar, and started pretty much working from scratch. I changed the way I picked, and that was kind of a necessity because I was going from real shred type prog metal-ish type of music to solo jazz guitar, bebop, you know, the real old school jazz stuff. So I'm not going to say it needed to be done. In retrospect, if I had me as a teacher now, I could have made it a lot more painless. And so my advice, whenever you're, I don't like to say switching styles, and I think that's something you need to sort of clarify in your head. Like if you're a blues player and you want to play jazz, you're not necessarily switching, you're not going from one to the other. You already have abilities, you already have knowledge, and rather than do what I did, which was fucking throwing it all away and starting over, and then, you know, 10 years later starting to sort of mix the two, which is what I'm still doing to this day. What I would recommend is whatever, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a lot of classical players will eventually want to get into rock, right? That's a common one. Like, I think even guys like Yngwie may have, you know, I don't know his history, but, you know, if you're going from classical to rock, or rock to jazz, or blues to jazz, or you just want, anyway, the way you want to do it is whatever style you're trying to incorporate. Again, you're not switching styles. You know, it's all music. It's all got the same 12 notes. There are going to be some pretty big differences, especially with jazz harmony. That's the trickiest part, I think. Start incorporating those new elements into what you're currently doing, and just accept the fact that it's going to be a gradual process. You know, you're not going to go from being an Yngwie clone to playing like Wes Montgomery in a month, you know, or even a year. You want to start incorporating, especially the chords. The chords are the easiest way to start incorporating that stuff. You know, so if you're like a rock guy, like maybe like a Satriani Vai type of guy playing like rock instrumentals or something like that, you know, you can just start incorporating more interesting chords in your playing and throwing a little chromaticism, and then start learning those drop 2 and drop 3 chords. If you're a blues player and you want to make your blues playing more colorful, get the fuck out of the pentatonic scale and the blues scale. You know, start exploring some Lydian sounds, some Dorian sounds. Again, chords. If you're playing a minor blues, you can throw in minor 9s, minor 6s, you know, minor 7 flat 5 chords. You know, you can substitute 2 5 chords for dominant 7 chords sometimes, depending on the blues you're playing. You know, you can, over the 5 chord, you can do an altered scale. If you don't know this stuff, that's cool. You don't have to know it. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But there are ways you can kind of pick and choose the jazz stuff that you want, or, you know, whatever. Like me, I started getting into flamenco stuff. I tried teaching myself, and it was a train wreck. Man, my right hand trying to do all those things, like, my technique was terrible. But what I did is I got some new chords out of it. I decided not to approach it the way I approached getting into jazz. I said, you know what, I like this music. I really don't like it enough. I'm not going to drop everything to become some flamenco guy. You know, I could if I wanted to, for sure. I could do anything I want. So I would just get what I wanted to out of that music. Same thing with classical music. I never sat there with my foot up on a stool and learned classical guitar. I'd work out of violin books. I'd go to the music store and buy like violin. There were a lot of exercise books, like with cool arpeggio exercises in them, or, you know, some of the stuff my mom was playing on piano. And I would just grab the little, like going shopping, you know, I would just grab what I needed. And that's what you can do with jazz. And what'll happen is, as you incorporate that stuff into your playing, the transition will be seamless. If you want to go from a fucking death metal shred guy to a super traditional archtop solo, Joe Pass type guy, you can do that. But the starting point is to incorporate the new words, the new vocabulary, the new colors into your current playing. And then, you know, you work on little things, work on a little bit of a song here and there, learn a couple of new chords, maybe some ways you can use that harmony in the music you're playing at the time. And just by through immersion in that new style, you know, you want to listen to it more, and you're going to be focused on it more, right? It's just going to happen. Those little alterations in your picking technique, from going to playing a damn 8-string Ibanez with a rack freaking Mesa Boogie stack or something, to playing jazz guitar with flat wounds through a little combo amp. You know, that you're going to have to change the way you pick, but those things can happen smoothly and gradually. And you can, you know, I was miserable for a while because I stopped playing the stuff I was playing for a decade, and I was just like a child starting to learn jazz shit. And it was like, luckily I did it like all day, every day, until I started getting it down and I could do gigs and play with some level of authority. So I guess the key, no matter what style you're playing, you know, but it's mostly rock and blues guys that want to get into jazz. And again, the first step is don't jump into jazz. Take some of that stuff and bring it home, baby. Bring it in.